The truth about our childhood is stored up in our body. And although we can repress it, we can never alter it. Alice Miller. Imagine living every day trying to prove you were enough. But deep inside, you know the love you needed was never unconditional. Maybe you did everything right, obeyed, excelled, kept quiet, but still felt invisible, judged, or not truly accepted. That kind of wound doesn't fade just because time has passed. It lives on, quietly shaping how you see yourself, how you connect with others, and how you carry your pain. This is what Alice Miller revealed about narcissistic fathers, the silent, emotional damage they leave behind. Damage that often hides beneath success, perfectionism, or constant self-doubt. She taught us that these wounds are not just the past, they are stored in the body, in the nervous system, in how we react, trust, and love. And unless we bring awareness to them, they will keep affecting our present. In this video, we'll explore how Miller's powerful insights can help you understand what really happened to you, not what you were told, not what you tried to believe, but the real emotional story your body still remembers. We'll dive into what it means to grow up with a narcissistic father, why that experience often leads to deep inner conflict, and most importantly, how you can start to break free from the patterns it created. Because healing is possible. It begins when we stop pretending we were never hurt and start listening to the truth that never left us. So, who is the narcissistic father, and how does he leave such a deep mark on a child's sense of self? He is not always the loudest man in the room, or the most obviously cruel. Sometimes, he's charming in public, respected, even admired. But inside the home, and more critically, inside the heart of his child, he rules through control, conditional affection, and emotional distance. The narcissistic father sees his child not as a person with their own feelings, needs, and voice, but as an extension of himself. He uses the child to reflect his image, feed his ego, or fulfill dreams he never achieved. Approval is offered like a transaction. Do what I want, and you'll be loved. Disobey, and you'll be punished. Not always with violence, but with withdrawal, shame, disappointment. Alice Miller explained this dynamic with piercing clarity when she wrote, "The child becomes what the parents want him to be, not who he truly is." Under such pressure, the child learns early on that love is not a given. It must be earned. Not through being real, vulnerable, or spontaneous, but through being perfect, through silence, through performance. The child internalizes the belief that their worth depends entirely on meeting the father's expectations. And here's the real tragedy. Many children of narcissistic fathers grow up believing they were the problem, that they failed somehow, that they were too sensitive, too rebellious, too emotional, or simply not enough. But the truth, as Miller revealed, is the opposite. These children were not seen for who they were. They were seen only through the distorted lens of a father who needed control more than connection. In such an environment, the child often becomes hyper-aware of every shift in tone, every look of disapproval. They scan for signs, learn to anticipate, to adapt, to survive. But survival has a cost. That cost is the gradual erasure of the true self, the child's authentic feelings, desires, and sense of identity become buried under layers of compliance and self-denial. The child wears a mask, carefully constructed to please the father, to avoid conflict, to secure some semblance of love. and this mask often stays on well into adulthood. Many adult children of narcissistic fathers carry this invisible weight, striving for perfection, fearing failure, avoiding vulnerability. They may succeed outwardly, but feel hollow inside, because their inner world was shaped not by safety and acceptance, but by performance and fear. The narcissistic father may never acknowledge this damage. In fact, he may continue to deny, manipulate, or belittle, even when confronted. But the real power comes not from changing him, but from understanding the truth of what you lived. Alice Miller believed that true healing begins when we stop trying to become what someone else wanted and start reclaiming who we were meant to be. The child of a narcissistic father doesn't just adapt on the outside, he fractures on the inside. In a home where love is conditional and affection depends on performance, the child quickly learns that being authentic is risky. Expressing sadness, anger, or even joy in an unapproved way can lead to punishment, withdrawal, or cold silence. So, the child begins to suppress, first, their emotions, then their thoughts, and eventually, their sense of self. Over time, this suppression becomes a survival strategy. Alice Miller described it as the creation of a false self, a version of the child carefully shaped to gain approval and avoid rejection. This false self is polite, obedient, successful, whatever the father wants. But beneath it, the real self, with all its natural needs and emotions, goes silent. And the child, though still breathing and functioning, begins to feel hollow, disconnected, and fundamentally not enough. This inner emptiness becomes a constant companion. It shows up in adulthood as chronic self-doubt, anxiety, and a deep fear of failure or rejection. Many adult children of narcissistic fathers feel an unshakable pressure to be perfect, not for joy or pride, but out of fear. Fear that if they falter, if they're vulnerable, they will lose love, respect, or even their sense of worth. Relationships become complicated. Intimacy may feel unsafe. Trust is fragile. These adults often seek validation from others the way they once sought it from their father, constantly trying to prove their value, earn affection, or avoid disapproval. Alice Miller emphasized that these wounds are not just emotional, they are also somatic, meaning they live in the body. The truth about our childhood is stored up in our body, she wrote, and although we can repress it, we can never alter it. The body remembers. It carries the tension, the fear, the suppressed tears, even when the conscious mind forgets or rationalizes. This is why so many people, even those who seem fine, struggle with unexplained anxiety, depression, or fatigue. Their bodies are carrying pain they were never allowed to express. They may say, "My childhood wasn't that bad," or "I know my father loved me in his own way," because denial can be easier than facing the loneliness and fear that came with growing up under control rather than care. But the symptoms persist. The feeling of never being enough, the need to please, the fear of setting boundaries. All of it traces back to that early environment where love felt earned and safety was never guaranteed. Alice Miller believed that until we reconnect with the truth of our own childhood, until we allow ourselves to feel what we were once forced to suppress, we remain trapped in cycles of pain. Healing begins with awareness, with reclaiming the real self that was silenced. And though that journey is not easy, it is the only path back to wholeness. What if the pain you carry isn't just sadness, but something more explosive? What if you feel anger toward your father, even hatred, and it refuses to fade no matter how much you try to suppress it? For many people who grew up under narcissistic, abusive, or neglectful fathers, this inner fire is real, and it's terrifying. Society teaches us to honor our fathers, to be grateful, to forgive. But Alice Miller urged us to face the truth instead of masking it with forced love or premature forgiveness. She wrote, "Hatred is not the opposite of love. It is a desperate protest against the absence of love. If your father hit you, insulted you, ignored your needs, or used you as an object to control and manipulate, then your anger is not only valid, it's natural." Children who are abused are often told to stay silent, to be obedient, to smile and say thank you. This forces a child to turn their pain inward. Over time, this suppressed rage doesn't disappear. It turns into anxiety, depression, self-doubt, and even a deep sense of shame. You may feel guilty for resenting your father. You may question your own memories. Was it really that bad? But the body remembers what the mind denies. Alice Miller believed that repressed pain lives in the body. The tension in your chest, the knots in your stomach, the panic you feel when someone raises their voice. It's all the voice of your younger self trying to be heard. The child who was never protected, never truly loved, never seen for who they really were. When we are taught that love must be earned and that expressing pain is disloyal, we internalize a damaging belief: I'm not allowed to be angry. But healing begins when we allow ourselves to feel what we were once forbidden to feel. Miller taught that you do not have to force forgiveness. You do not have to pretend that your father was better than he was. True healing requires honesty. It requires seeing what happened with clear eyes, not to stay stuck in the past, but to stop being ruled by it. Anger is not something to fear. It's a message. It tells you that a boundary was crossed, that something was wrong. By listening to that anger, you give yourself a chance to reclaim your voice. This doesn't mean staying in anger forever. It means letting it speak, so it no longer has to scream. Miller warned that premature forgiveness can silence the truth. Only when we honor our pain can we move forward. You are not cruel for feeling anger. You are not broken because you resent a parent who hurt you. These are signs that you are alive, that your soul is resisting the lie that says, "This was love." You can feel anger and still heal. You can mourn your childhood and still build a beautiful life. Your pain is not your identity, but it is your teacher. And when you listen, you start to change, not into someone your father wanted you to be, but into who you were always meant to become. Why is it so hard to face the truth about a father who hurt us? Why do so many people, even those with painful childhoods, find themselves defending the very person who caused the wound? Alice Miller offered a profound answer. We see our parents not as they were, but as we needed them to be. As children, survival often depends on this illusion. To believe that the person who feeds you, protects you, and teaches you also harms you, that's a truth too heavy for a child to carry. So the mind builds a defense. It turns the parent into a hero, and the child's pain into a misunderstanding, an overreaction, or even a personal failure. We grow up minimizing the abuse, justifying the anger, or telling ourselves it wasn't that bad. But this defense comes at a cost. The unacknowledged pain doesn't disappear. It buries itself in the body, in the nervous system, in patterns of guilt, self-doubt, and emotional disconnection. Defending the parent becomes a way to avoid the deeper wound, the wound of being unloved, unseen, or used. But real healing can't begin until we stop defending and start witnessing the truth. That doesn't mean turning every memory into trauma, but it does mean allowing ourselves to see clearly. Maybe your father was emotionally absent, or maybe he controlled your every move. Maybe he gave you things, but withheld affection. Whatever your story, if it left a mark on your sense of self, it deserves to be acknowledged, not excused. Alice Miller believed that the truth, while painful, is the only path to freedom. She warned that denial keeps us trapped in the same emotional prison we grew up in, repeating the same patterns in our adult relationships, careers, and inner lives. The first step toward healing is not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but honesty with yourself. It means letting go of who you wanted your father to be and allowing yourself to see who he truly was. It means grieving the love you didn't receive instead of pretending it was there. That grief is not weakness, it's liberation. Because once you stop protecting the image of your father, you can finally start protecting yourself. And in that shift, you reclaim something powerful, the right to your own story, unfiltered and unafraid. Healing from the emotional wounds left by a narcissistic father is not a quick or simple path, but it is possible and deeply necessary. Alice Miller believed that we are not doomed to remain trapped in the patterns of our childhood, but to break free, we must first reclaim what was lost, our true self. The first step is to rediscover your authentic voice, the one that was silenced in order to survive. This can begin through reflective writing, journaling not about what you think should have happened, but what actually did. Write as the child you once were. What did you feel? What did you long for? What hurt you? This process of expressive writing has been proven in psychological studies, such as James Pennebaker's work, to reduce emotional stress and reconnect people with their repressed truths. Alongside writing, mindful self-awareness through meditation or therapy can help you hear your own voice again, beneath the noise of internalized shame. Which brings us to the second step. Identify the voice of your father inside you. Often, we carry the critic with us, the harsh, judgmental, demanding voice that echoes his control. You may hear it when you fail, when you feel weak, when you try to rest. Alice Miller urged us to recognize that this inner voice is not your true self, it is a survival imprint. Through therapy, especially approaches like internal family systems, IFS, or trauma-focused CBT, you can learn to separate that inner critic from your core self and speak to it with compassion, not fear. Step 3. Seek out relationships that are safe, nourishing, and real. Many survivors of childhood narcissism find themselves repeating patterns, choosing partners or friends who are critical, distant, or manipulative. This isn't weakness, it's familiarity. But healing means choosing differently. It means valuing people who see you, accept you, and respect your boundaries. These connections won't fix the past, but they offer something new, a chance to experience love without conditions. Step 4. Honor your anger, then release it gently. Anger, as we've seen, is not your enemy, it's your messenger. Ignoring it leads to self-blame, but living inside it forever keeps you stuck. Practices like somatic experiencing, developed by Peter Levine, or trauma-informed yoga help process stored tension and allow the body to release what the mind cannot express. The goal is not to deny the rage, but to move through it, to feel it, name it, and let it go. Finally, and most importantly, redefine your worth. You are not just your father's child. You are not his project, his legacy, or his reflection. Your value does not depend on achievement, obedience, or perfection. You exist as a whole, worthy person, regardless of who he was or what he failed to give you. Alice Miller wrote, "We cannot undo our past, but we can refuse to live by its lies." This is the essence of healing. To live, not as a shadow of what was demanded of you, but as the full expression of who you truly are. Your journey may be long. It may bring up grief, anger, even fear, but with each step, each act of honesty, each boundary set, each truth spoken, you reclaim yourself. And in that there is freedom. And now, as we come to the end of this video, let's return to what truly matters. Not the past itself, but what you do with it now. Alice Miller taught us that courage isn't about suppressing anger or pretending we were never hurt. True courage is facing the pain honestly, without shame, and refusing to let it define our future. The wounds left by a narcissistic father may never fully disappear, but your awareness, your voice, your choice to see clearly, that is where freedom begins. You no longer have to justify what happened or excuse the person who hurt you. You don't have to force love or forgiveness or closeness. What you can do is offer yourself the safety, kindness, and truth you were denied. The journey of healing is not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. It's about stepping out of the shadow of someone else's control and into the light of your own identity. So take this with you. You are not defined by your father's control. You are free to define yourself.